Coffee series. This is Peter Ngozi-Nyirongo, and you know what time it is when you see me with my jumper, my black jumper with shades, and my coffee mag, because you never know what's in the coffee mag. I have hot chocolate, I have water, I have everything in there. So, guys, I'm excited to have this special, beautiful guest. Her name is Prudence. She is as dynamic as they come. We keep escalating in the program. We have people that are good and greater and greater. And believe me, she's amongst one of the greater ones. What did you say, Prudence?
The good ones.
Well, the audience agrees with me. They think you're probably amongst the greater ones. So Prudence, it's great to have you, and I've been looking forward to having you here.
Mm-hmm. Great, it's good to be here as well, and thank you so much for the invitation. I'm honored to speak to your listeners.
Great. So I do know, Prudence, that your background stems from corporate. You've worked for some of the world's biggest known corporations, and then eventually you stepped out into your own turf. So all of that spells leadership conversations, no matter how small it may seem. But I think with some of the roles that you played in the corporations you worked, I think, and then now where you are at the moment, all of that to me spells a lot of leadership decisions, let it be in corporate or just leading yourself to the next stage. Do you want to just walk us through the journey of where you started from with the corporates?
Yeah. So as a young student, while I was in university, I started my first job as in food retail. Actually,
Okay.
Food retail, where you work for Friday, one evening, and Saturday. And whilst I was in business school, and after that was in Sainsbury's, that was in the UK. And then after that, I had the opportunity to come back to South Africa. I went to work for Pick and Pay at the head office. And
How long were you in the UK for?
For 8 years.
My goodness! Which part of the UK was it?
I was in Kent. So I was in Kent for school, and then I was in West London for university. Okay. And then I went to settle close to London again, central London, after I finished my studies.
Okay. I've had a short stint in London around Oxford, and I was just like, man, this place looks boring. Which is a different experience with New York. I felt like, look, this is where I belong.
Yeah, no, I'm a citizen as well. So I love the hustle and bustle of the city. So I tell you to shop all the way from Oxford to Tottenham Court. I was cross the road as I shopped along. So I love the busyness of the city, large city. So I love it.
Great. So you were there for 8 years, and then you now came back to South Africa.
Yes. So I came back, went back to food retail. That's what I knew. But I started my first management job already whilst I was a student. Just after I graduated, I had the privilege and the opportunity to step into management. I came back. As I said, I went to food retail. I worked for Pick and Pay at the head office. After that, I was headhunted by PricewaterhouseCoopers. I spent 6 years with them, but I worked also with people outside the country because I was the national HR manager, senior manager for around South Africa for tax and legal. So I often had to travel Australia, London, all of that. Then I went to Shell, and then after that, my last big corporation, global multinational, was 3M, where I was the head of HR.
Hmm.
Yes.
Wow. Give me a recap again. 3M. What is 3M? It's an IT multinational, right?
They are sales and science organization, so they are into innovation, and
Yeah.
they have widespread of products, more than 6,000 products, and they have the most amazing.
Wow.
They have over 5,000 engineers working for them. So they are, yeah. So it's science, so it's science and sales.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what role did you play at 3M?
I was the HR for South Africa and other neighboring countries.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So, in terms of challenges that you went through in corporate, looking back, what would you say? Say, you know what? I think that for me showed me that, hey, this is what it actually means to be a leader, especially that you're a lady. You can be very biased towards men. And so here you are leading and sort of directing men. How did you overcome some of those challenges? And at what point did you say, look, this is what it means to be a leader, and what kind of opposition did you receive?
I'm going to be very direct with you,
Yes.
Peter. And
Yeah.
when I started in some of the big companies, I would myself being one of the senior executives or senior members of the Manco, and a lot of people would struggle with my diversity. A lot of people would struggle with my profile, and also the fact that I did not have the wherewithal to be quiet in meetings. So I would go and ask, I would challenge, and yet they would be thinking, you don't understand your role here, and so that was it for me, to really appreciate diversity and always to have a voice at the table, because I think there are many different reasons why people bring you on board. Some of them will bring you on board because of transformation, but when you get there, it's a different ballgame altogether. And I always be true to myself. I will always say in the interviews, if you say transformation is what you want to do, I'm your girl. And if transformation is not what you want to do, I'm not the person for the job. Because when I land, that is exactly what I'm going to be working on. So that was some of my biggest challenges. And also to understand emotional intelligence. So to understand how to get on with every single business leader. So I don't build relationships in the group, right? So relationships with each and every single business leader. The ones that they say are difficult, the ones that they would have a certain preference for the people that they hang around with, I will go and have a relationship with all of them. So, and in those relationships, you may not have initially approved of my arrival, but because I spend time with the individuals in their businesses. And I also was not a traditional HR person. I didn't study psychology, which most of my counterparts have. I studied business. So because I also use business language. So when I'm sitting with the business leader, I don't want to talk about time and attendance. I don't want to be talking about leave. I only talk about those things when I see the business impact. So my conversations would be around what is happening in your business, what are the numbers, where are the biggest challenges? Exactly. Bottom line, what are the biggest challenges? What is your market penetration? Where are you finding the competitive advantage? And how can I help you with that? I don't want to talk speak, because I think HR is to empower the business to deliver. It's not about policies and processes and shuffling folks around. I'm not that HR person. Yeah, so I think that is what I understood, and I think a lot of the business leaders appreciated that.
I think with what you're saying, really, Prudence, is that it sort of also shows how the transition was almost a natural fit for you to get into entrepreneurship, because primarily if you're an employee and you think like you own the business and you run the business that you work for as though it's yours, which is something I cover in the next book that I'm running, the third book, which focuses on employees. I cover that run the business, that rather don't work for the business or be an employee, but run the business when you're employed. So I just sort of want to zero in to draw you back a little, because there's a lot of women that go through this challenge in the workplace. The ceiling is obviously breaking. There's all things like the Me Too movement have brought out a lot of hidden challenges that women were facing in the workplace, and sort of you have to balance what it means with the role that you're in, the opportunity that you've been given, and then also just what it means to be a woman in the workspace. You're beautiful, you're very attractive. Your Facebook fans talk about your permanganate lips.
I thought that is off the record for today.
Those of you that you're listening in right now or watching, so Prudence has got her own platforms that she'll talk about, and some fans always talk about how her beauty captivates them. So anyway, Prudence, what are some of those challenges that you think you can look back, and maybe now also looking back, you say, look, when I was in corporate, these were the challenges that I think women were facing, and now, it's sort of different, or it has improved in a certain area?
I think the challenges have pretty much remained the same.
Really?
The challenges have remained the same, and I'll give you some data of why I'm saying that. I was also the Business Women's Association, the Gauteng region, for a while. And one of the things that we did was every 2 years we would do a census called the Women in Leadership Census. And because it's a census, it's actually tracking the development of women wherever they are.
Yeah.
And we would have the census coming out, and some of the data, I think the last one in 2017, was that we were not making much progress. And what we were finding is even women, when they would go and be employed on a board, if it's alone in the wilderness, that woman would be under a lot of strain to bring that diversity on the board and to make a contribution, where the contribution is actually appreciated. We also have data that shows that when you do have diversity on your board, the financials are better. So,
of course.
Apart from a lot of data that is available, we were seeing that it will take about 52 years for women to get to gender parity in corporate South Africa.
Oh my
so
goodness.
From that, what we saw was that although the data is there, although we are talking about the benefits, we were just not seeing people walking the talk. Although the government has also, there was a big agenda about, women ministers. So we saw a lot of women ministers. However, some of the issues that came up, when it came to gender violence, when it came to sexual harassment in the workplace, we did not, the Ministry of Women, which was a new ministry that was created, that the Ministry of Women was really creating impact and awareness and education and really pushing the boundaries for the conversation to go forward. So what I would say is I still see that women are still fighting about their voice at the table. When women get into senior management, they have to choose between family and career. A lot of it.
That's right.
And that is why when I arrived in most of these corporations where I worked at, I made sure that I would set up forums for the advancement of women in leadership, because I understood that you really have to have a place where women can sit and talk. And it's not, I'm not talking about a tea party. I'm not talking about us laboring together.
So tell me something, Prudence. I mean, the realities that are there right now. I mean, from a guy's perspective, I thought that it's probably improved, okay? But here's a young lady who's dealing with an environment where the gender parity is, the gap is quite huge. How does she navigate, in being a leader and asserting and positioning herself? What advice can you give, other than waiting for 52 years before it actually meets what the statistics and data indicates? What can a young professional do who's ambitious, she's assertive, she wants to get there? How does she navigate through this maze of male dominance?
I think I will go back to the issue of emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence talks about you understanding how you respond and react to certain things. Because when I was in the boardroom, again, I was also on an international board. So I was at the opportunity to sit on an international board for over 7 years. And at the time when I had to lead a committee on the board.
Which board is this, if you don't mind me asking?
No, Africa Harvest Biotech Foundation International. And so I was the only South African on the board, and I was the
Yeah.
youngest on the board as well. So what you would find is, I would say to young people,
Yeah.
understand your personal brand. And I do facilitate sessions on personal branding, where you
Yeah.
understand your competence, you understand the contribution that you can make, you
Yeah.
understand the impact that you have to create in business, and you don't lose your voice to make that impact. So wherever
Yeah.
I'm landing, as I said, I will talk to business leaders. I will build my relationship with individuals so that they understand where I'm coming from. I understand where they're coming from, what challenges they are dealing with in business. And I don't let myself be distracted by all the other things about how pretty he is, and people paying you compliments, because some of those would be very subtle
Mm.
things to exactly sidetrack you. And I would not
Sure.
be sidetracked by those things. I think I would always have my voice, and I want to challenge something. Sometimes in a board meeting, people will talk and they will go over the issue, and you would want to say something or ask a question, and they won't allow you to. But
Yes.
later on, my opportunity to speak, I will come back to that question.
That's
And
right.
because I'm confident that I do have a voice and I do have a contribution to make, people will have to respond to the questions that I ask. And sometimes it turned out that they have not considered that question, and that question is important for the business to make the most informed decision.
Yeah.